In a hospital's neonatal ward among the many newborn babies, one stands out for her striking beauty. Years later, at an amusement park, we see that the baby has grown up. All of her friends are enchanted by how cute and charming Mona is. At school, while playing hide and seek, all the boys eagerly wait for her to finish counting, hoping to be the first one she catches. Everyone is busy taking care of Mona by making everything easy for her to handle, protect her at any cost. Years pass and Mona grows up. One day, we see her waking up in her bedroom, and Mona has now transformed into a young woman. She rushes to high school, and everyone on the street stops to admire the beautiful girl. At school, everyone greets her warmly, thrilled to talk to her. Everyone except Medaka, who simply responds with a polite greeting. Mona wonders why he's the only one who greets her so coldly. Every day, she tries to start a conversation, asking how he's adjusting to his new school since he transferred 2 weeks ago. Medaka immediately grows annoyed with her chatter as she offers to show him around the school again. All the boys watch enviously as Mona invites him to spend time with her once more. Medaka asks Mona to stop getting so close to him, feeling the envious looks around him. Mona sits at the desk next to him, wondering how it's possible that there's a boy who doesn't care about her. Her ego feels bruised. She notices Medaka looking at his phone and catches a glimpse of pictures of the kitten. Mona thinks she's finally found a way to change how he sees her. She asks if he likes cats while cutely mimicking a kitten by grooming her arms and hands. Everyone in the classroom gushes over how adorable Mona is, but the only reaction that matters to her is Medaka's. He looks at her annoyed as heck and asks her not to bother him. Everyone in the classroom stares at him in disbelief, angry at how he treated the charming girl. Mona can't believe she hasn't been able to elicit the slightest reaction from him even after doing this much. Until Medaka seems like he wants to ask her something, Mona gets excited and eagerly asks what he needs. Medaka then asks her not to talk to him unless it's absolutely necessary. Mona is stunned by what she hears, recalling how everyone has adored her since childhood. Panicking, Mona runs off, wondering how Medaka hasn't fallen for her yet. She comes up with a new plan, climbing a ladder to hang a poster while he walks by, knowing no man could resist looking at her long, beautiful legs. Medaka passes by, notices her intentions, and when he realizes he cannot help but feel annoyed by her antics. Realizing plan F failed, she moves on to plan B, falling from the ladder in a way that innocently and cutely reveals her underwear. Several boys rush to help her, but Medaka simply looks at her with exasperation and cringe. Mona can't believe that it didn't work either, leaving her with no choice but to use her ultimate move. During class, Mona raises her hand and tells the teacher she isn't feeling well and wants to go to the infirmary. The teacher agrees and looks for someone to accompany her. A girl volunteers, but Mona pretends to take a trip and leans on Medaka, telling the teacher he can take her. The teacher asks Medaka if he can handle it, and Medaka has no choice but to agree. In the infirmary, Mona corners him against the wall. He asks if she's really feeling unwell. Mona replies that the infirmary is usually empty at this time, and since he's the first boy to push her to such extremes, asks if he feels anything for her. She worries that his distant attitude might mean she's done something to upset him. Medaka says that's not the case. Seeing his first hint of empathy, Mona thinks she's finally got him, but Medaka's expression quickly shifts back to the familiar look of annoyance she knows too well. Realizing she has to act quickly, she grabs his arm and leads him to sit down, but they trip on the curtain and fall onto the bed. Mona thinks things have gone too far and apologizes, then notices that even while she's on top of him, he still looks irritated. Mona refuses to believe her charms aren't working, so she unbuttons her blouse, exclaiming that it was an accident. Knowing she's gone too far, she hopes this will finally win him over. Medaka frowns at her and resists giving in. When even that fails, Mona throws a tantrum, causing the mattress to fall to the floor with both of them. Medaka asks if she's hurt. Finally, a small moment of closeness. Mona feels the moment, but then she remembers her blouse is still open. Embarrassed, she replies that she's fine and asks him to let her go. Flustered, Medaka stands up and assures her he didn't mean for that to happen. He tells her they should return to class and before leaving, suggests she save moments like that for a boy she genuinely cares about as he thinks he might not be the one. Hearing this, Mona can't help but blush. She grows annoyed with herself for allowing this boy to make her feel something when it should be the other way around. Shortly after, Mona returns to the classroom. The other boys ask if she's feeling better, and she replies that she is, thanking Medaka for helping her earlier. Something feels different, and Mona realizes that for the first time, the boy is looking directly at her. She, however, doesn't dare meet his gaze and wonders why she feels embarrassed and nervous, almost as if she's falling for him. Mona collapses on her desk, looks at Medaka, and swears on her life that she will make him fall in love with her no matter what it takes to do so. The next day, Mona arrives at school, greeted warmly by everyone. She meets Medaka in the hallway, and once again, he gives her a polite and cold greeting. She notices that he's finally wearing the school uniform. Medaka responds with a simple yes and continues walking. As he passes by a pair of girls in the hallway, one of them, Asahi, blushes at the sight of him but pretends nothing happened. During gym class, Mona stretches, catching the attention of all the boys who are mesmerized. However, she's only concerned with whether Medaka notices how well-toned her body is. She doesn't think much of the others busy staring at her because she's on a mission, and that is only Medaka. She tries to get his attention by shouting for him to stretch with her, but he ignores her while looking rather irritated, which annoys the rest of her classmates. The coach instructs the girls to get ready for their game. Mona wonders what else she can use to try to catch Medaka's attention since her legs and chest haven't worked so far. She then thinks about another option but recalls Medaka's words from the day before. You should say things like that for a boy who truly cares about you. The coach starts announcing the teams while Mona convinces herself that it doesn't matter. She'll do whatever it takes to make him fall for her. After class, Mona is exhausted, her body covered in a light sheen of sweat. She dries herself in a way that reveals her abdomen. The boys go wild at the sight of this part of Mona, as they've never seen this side of her before. Mona is confident that her abs and her belly button will be spicy enough to make Medaka fall for her, but the boy simply turns around and walks away, muttering, "Clear mind, pure spirit." Once again, Mona has been defeated. Medaka goes to the water fountains to refresh himself, and Mona follows as if in a trance. He avoids looking at her directly, which Mona takes as a good sign. Yet something feels off, so she decides to abandon her mission and walk away. She turns on the faucet for a drink, and just as she takes a sip, Medaka looks at her, slightly blushing. He quickly averts his gaze when she notices. Mona realizes she finally has his attention. Then, by accident, she closes her hand over the faucet, causing water to splash all over her, soaking her shirt completely. Medaka begins to shout in embarrassment at the sight, and Mona starts to scream as she realizes what's happened. She crouches down and covers herself, trying to avoid making an even bigger fool of herself in front of Medaka. But it is all a desperate act to hide her wet body from the sight of Medaka, so she doesn't have to get embarrassed by him staring at her. In a rare act of kindness, Medaka takes off his shirt and wraps it over her to hide her revealing body. Mona can't help but notice his physique and blushes. Medaka decides to head back to the gym, and Mona thanks him for his gesture. As Medaka walks away, Mona thinks to herself, now that's what showing a perfect belly peak looks like. Meanwhile, the girl hidden behind the door watches the entire scene unfold. Leaving the school, Medaka suddenly realized the shirt that he left with Mona must smell of sweat. Two boys greet him and ask if he's being too hard on Mona, pointing out that she's putting in a lot of effort to win him over and suggesting that he should be more considerate about it. Medaka decides to ignore their chatter and keeps walking, but they insist on having a civil conversation. He takes them to a park and explains that he's the heir to a feline temple and is forbidden from getting too close to girls because of his duties. He's never had a girlfriend because his village only had elderly people and goats. Also, he doesn't really understand anything about girls as he's never had the opportunity to interact with them. The boys start to understand why Medaka acts the way he does with Mona even when she tries her best to hang on to him. It's not that he's ignoring Mona intentionally. He simply doesn't know how to deal with her at all. Not just her, but all girls in general. Medaka admits that he's only ever seen girls as pretty as Mona on TV shows. Remembering all the spectacles and displays Mona has made over the past few days, he feels like he's been thrown straight into the big leagues all too easily. Unlike his village, the city is full of temptations, making it very difficult for him to stay focused on his path. The boys understand but argue it wouldn't hurt to try being a little nicer to her, no matter what happens. Medaka agrees with them but knows that if he gives in even slightly, he'll end up falling for her. He refuses to betray his faith in a girl as he has never hoped it to happen even in his wildest dreams. But then, for a moment, he imagines dating her, but he shouts to banish the impure thought and begins murmuring once again. Clear mind, pure spirit. The boys realize that this mantra helps him keep his thoughts in check. Medaka reminds himself that he transferred schools to strengthen his mind and live a life free from worldly desires. The next day, Mona gives him back his shirt, freshly washed. Medaka tells her it wasn't necessary, but Mona teasingly asks if he wants it to keep her scent. Once more, Medaka struggles to maintain his composure while facing the direct antagonist on the path to keep his faith. As soon as she arrives at school in the art room, the boys eagerly watch as Mona poses for Medaka to draw her. They continue to be enchanted by Mona, saying that she remains as charming as ever. However, Mona doesn't give a damn about them. But Medaka avoids looking at her and concentrates on his drawing board to keep impure thoughts at bay. Frustrated by his lack of attention, Mona suggests that he take advantage of her rare modeling offer and make her pose however he wants, even joking about posing without clothes. Upon hearing this, the boy next to her almost pulls out his own hair, envious of the gift Medaka is receiving. Medaka's lack of reaction annoys her, as it was just a playful joke. But Medaka continues to look at her with a certain repulsion, not giving a damn about her good mood. On the other hand, the boys from before standing next to her praise her by saying that she is indeed very funny. Confident, Mona plans to end her and Medaka's indifference through her art project, drawing each other. She devises a shameless strategy to win him over. Mona looks for seductive poses to make Medaka's heart race. She remembers when he could not look away after she got wet and came up with the perfect pose. Medaka fights off impure thoughts by concentrating on his creed, but when Mona changes her pose, the blood rushes to his head. He enters a state of extreme meditation to block out inappropriate thoughts. They begin to work and Medaka only focuses on making a good drawing. Mona doesn't understand how he can do it so calmly with her as a model. Meanwhile, a girl in class can't stop staring at Mona, leading her model to scold her for not paying attention. Mona continues posing provocatively and notices her classmates watching more intently than Medaka. She asks him what part he is drawing now. Medaka replies that he is working on her neck, making Mona feel like he is devouring her with his eyes. When she discovers that the boy is looking at that exact area, Mona starts to blush because the simple fact that he is looking at her neck already makes her start thinking about many wrong things, and as soon as that warm feeling takes over her body, Mona ends up not being able to resist. Overwhelmed, she runs to the girls' bathroom, wishing that Medaka would always look at her that way. Back in the classroom, the boys admire Medaka's detailed work and ask him what he plans to do with it. Medaka imagines various scenarios for his drawing in his head and begins to pray. Later, at the library, Medaka looks for a book for his homework, only to find Mona reaching for it. Mona jokingly comments that it must be fate and suggests they read it together. Medaka declines, hands her the book, and leaves, muttering a prayer. After all, the simple fact of touching her hand by accident leaves his mind more agitated than an earthquake. As for Mona, she stays behind him as she is trying her best to understand him. Disappointed, Mona notices that the girl from art class is still staring at her, and when she stares back at the girl, she manages to leave the library scared. Undeterred by the rejection, Mona decides to invade Medaka's personal space. While the two read the book, the boys next to them watched from afar, cursing Maka as they wished they were in his place, able to enjoy Mona's company to the fullest. As for Haruno, she continues to be obsessed with Mona and stares at her from afar again. When she sees that the girl apparently wants to tell her something, Mona doesn't understand why Haruno stays away instead of approaching her. Thinking back, she remembers that Haruno was looking at her in art class, and coincidentally, on that occasion, she was accompanied by Medaka. With this in mind, Mona deduces that Haruno is actually looking at Medaka because she has a crush on him. Feeling like she is now competing with Haruno, Mona realizes that despite spending all her time with Medaka, he doesn't even look back at her. Determined to change her strategy, she begins analyzing Haruno's behavior, convinced that Mika must like people with her profile, quiet, bookish girls. She worries if Medaka prefers girls like Haruno. After all the effort she's invested, Mona won't let anyone else take him away. Furthermore, Medaka continues to show no interest in her, so she can't waste any more time and needs to act. She is determined to show her full potential to win Medaka over. After completing her analysis, Mona starts to behave just like Haruno, even putting on glasses to fully get into character. She sits in front of him with a cup of tea and glasses, possibly over the counter, trying to project a different side of herself to see if it will make him fall for her. As soon as they see her with glasses, the cattle in the library start to venerate her again. Her followers, usually eager to praise her every move, are shocked by her bold behavior in the library and overlook the rule-breaking tea. Mona believes her intellectual Mona act fits perfectly with the library atmosphere and is confident that she will win Medaka's heart. Medaka notices her glasses and thinks she looks cute, but quickly looks down to avoid further thoughts. Mona notices this and taps his leg with her foot, sending shivers down his spine. Knowing that she is close to winning him over, Mona tenderly asks him what he thinks of her. Summoning divine strength, Medaka stands up and firmly asks her to stop kicking him. Once again, Mona's efforts fail and Haruno watches the scene in fascination. Mona realizes that Haruno is hopelessly in love with Medaka, making her a new rival. After that, Mona starts stalking Haruno wherever she goes, intending to better understand the girl's behavior. She quickly realizes that Haruno is very helpful, watering the school's plants and cleaning the blackboard without anyone even asking. Seeing that Haruno is genuinely a good girl, Mona decides to continue stalking her for a while longer, hoping to discover some flaws. Only then will she be sure that Haruno has no chance of winning Medaka's heart. In the locker room, Mona dismisses Haruno's virtues and focuses on her flaws to prove that she can't win over Medaka. However, when Mona sees Haruno changing and notices her well-lined figure, she realizes she is dealing with a strong competitor. Meanwhile, the other girls begin complimenting Haruno's body, expressing their jealousy. Haruno, in turn, becomes embarrassed, displaying an unusual level of modesty. Yet another quality Mona realizes she lacks. At another point, Mona vents to herself, admitting that Haruno is a much nicer and sweeter girl than she is. Since Maka is also reserved, she worries that Haruno might have an advantage over her. After all, the two seem much more compatible. Frustrated, Mona jogs on the track to let off steam, upset that Haruno has qualities she lacks. A boy approaches her to give her a book she asked for. Mona thanks him and shows some feminine affection, brightening the boy's day. She realizes that she has never spoken to Medaka like this, flattering him and expressing affection. She hatches a new plan. Medaka is resting on the school roof feeling the breeze when a handkerchief floats towards him. He catches it and Mona appears to thank him for retrieving her handkerchief. She plans to charm him so deeply that he won't realize he's fallen head over heels for her. Mona claims that she goes there to relax as well and thanks him again for catching her favorite handkerchief, mentioning how helpful he always is. She tries to tell him that she likes him, but the words don't come out. Despite having said it effortlessly just moments ago, she struggles to get the words out. The wind lifts her skirt, forcing her to hold it as she continues to try to confess her feelings. When she can't manage it, she blurts out that he disgusts her. Medaka assures her that he didn't look under her skirt, but Mona decides to postpone the conversation. The pressure mounts as she feels time running out, determined not to let Haruno win him over. A month passed and Mona hadn't progressed much in winning over Medaka at all, which frustrated her more than before. In class, elections for the festival committee are held. Students draw ballots to see who will be part of it. Medaka's ballot shows that he will not be participating, while Haruno is the first girl selected. Mona becomes the second girl selected. Haruno expresses excitement about working with Mona, who politely returns this sentiment but mentally lists all the insults she knows. After class, they meet to decide on the festival activity, considering options such as a cafe, a play, or a haunted house. Haruno asks what Mona's group did in high school. Mona replies that they had a costume cafe, which Haruno likes, imagining Mona in a cute, oversized costume. Mona immediately rejects the idea, imagining herself in a giant costume that hides her figure. As they continue to work, Mona tries to understand Haruno, realizing that they are now part of a twisted love triangle where only she is interested in making Medaka fall in love with her. However, Haruno seems absurdly happy to collaborate with her love rival, causing Mona to wonder if Haruno doesn't even see her as a worthy competitor. When Mona's pen runs out of ink, Haruno cheerfully offers her a spare one, and Haruno's phone rings. She quickly grabs it, holding it out of Mona's sight almost instantly. It is as if Haruno is intentionally trying to hide something from the eyes of Mona for some reason. Curious, Mona asks what's going on, but Haruno insists that she's the only one who can't see it. Mona, now determined to uncover the secret since she was not expecting Haruno, will reject the idea, politely requests to see it, but Haruno refuses and runs off. Mona chases after her, demanding to know why she can't see the phone. Haruno yells that Mona will hate her if she does. Mona promises she won't as long as she stays away from Medaka. Tackling Haruno, the phone falls to the ground. Then Mona picks it up and sees herself as Haruno's wallpaper, which is rather surprising, but at least it was nothing related to Medaka. Embarrassed, Haruno starts crying and begs Mona not to hate her. She explains that she has been Mona's #1 fan since the entrance ceremony. Mona looked beautiful and made everyone smile, so Haruno secretly started taking pictures. Nothing creepy, just around 300 photos. Mona realizes that Haruno isn't following Medaka but her. Haruno admits she wanted to change the wallpaper before Mona saw it to avoid seeming weird, but now it's too late. But Mona is relieved rather than being disturbed by it or something like that, since at least she is not competing with her to chase Medaka. Mona hugs her, assuring her it's okay and that she doesn't think she's strange. During the hug, Mona recalls that she confessed her feelings for Medaka during the chase. She tries to cover it up by saying she was talking about a fish named Medaka, but Haruno doesn't seem to buy it, having observed Mona closely enough to notice her changes since meeting Medaka. She offers to support Mona in winning his heart. Ironically, Mona finds it annoying when someone doesn't listen to her requests. The next day at school, the students prepare for the school's cultural festival they have been planning for a while now. While doing the work, Mona is approached by Haruno, but when she sees the girl constantly going to talk to her, Mona starts to become less helpful, answering only the basics. However, when she looks at Medaka and sees him focused only on schoolwork, even so, Mona is unable to look away from him no matter what. Realizing this, Mona is quite invested in Medaka. Haruno says she is rooting for Mona and believes that the cultural festival will be a good opportunity for her to show off to him. But upon hearing this, Mona tries to change the subject, saying once again that she doesn't like Medaka as Haruno is imagining. In this, she remembers again the moment when she asked Haruno to take her hands off Medaka and notices that this made the girl have a totally wrong idea about her. After all, Mona's only goal is just to make him fall in love with her, but she doesn't seem to know about anything that's about to happen after that. After class, Mona goes with Haruno to check out some clothes. While they choose the clothes they will wear, Haruno comments on a legend that revolves around their school's cultural festival. It is about the passage message of fate, also known as the Bridge of Love. Upon hearing this, Mona is left confused, and then Haruno calls her to the window and shows her a specific bridge. She then says that if a couple holds hands on that bridge during the school festival, they will both be in love with each other forever. That said, Haruno hopes that Mona will be able to hold Medaka's hand on that bridge so they can strengthen their relationship. Upon hearing this, Mona once again tries to convince her that they have nothing. But in the middle of the conversation, the teacher pulls Haruno to another place. As for Mona, she realizes that she will not be able to convince Haruno that she doesn't like him unless she can make the boy fall in love with her as soon as possible. She then begins to try on several outfits, hoping to find a look that will make her irresistible. Only then will she be able to make Medaka fall in love with her right away. But after trying on a few outfits, she discards them all and says she needs to find the perfect set of clothes that will make Medaka's heart race. After trying a little more, she manages to find the perfect look. In this case, she will go to the festival dressed as a Playboy bunny. But as soon as she looks in the mirror, she notices that this outfit shows a lot of skin, something that makes her somewhat uncomfortable. She then begins to consider the possibility of changing her look. But as soon as she says this, Medaka himself enters the room and sees her in that appealing outfit. At that, Mona begins to turn redder than a pepper and turns her back on him. As for Medaka, he begins to blush too and asks why she is wearing those clothes. She then makes an excuse, saying that she is just testing out some clothes as part of her duties on the festival committee. As for Medaka, he drops the papers he was bringing and says that his only function there is just to leave the papers in the room, but he's barely functioning after seeing Mona in this look. He makes it clear that he will leave in a second, but as he collects the papers, Mona hears Haruno's distant voice approaching and realizes that things will get even stranger if she finds her dressed as a bunny next to Medaka, and no explanation will be suitable on this occasion. So before Haruno is about to enter the room, Mona pulls Medaka and hides with him inside the wardrobe among the clothes. But as they get too close, her so-called melons begin to touch him, leaving him without reaction. In the meantime, Haruno collects the papers from the floor, wondering where they came from. Mona, in turn, gets all tense. As she is very close to Medaka, she hopes that he is not able to feel her accelerated heartbeat. After all, she is already favoring him too much by sticking to him. Meanwhile, Medaka continues to cross himself, and in the end, he manages to clear any and all inappropriate thoughts from his mind so as not to break down. However, when she sees him breathing heavily in her air, Mona begins to feel ticklish, which makes her almost laugh out loud. But she manages to control herself. Returning to Haruno, that same teacher from before appears there, asking Haruno to accompany her again. After the two leave, Medaka and Mona finally manage to get out of the cramped hiding place they were in, at which point Mona sighs in relief and then notices that she has just given something very precious to the boy. She looks at him to see if that was enough to make him fall in love with her, and she is hoping all the way about it. But in the end, she is as disappointed as always because her lover boy continues to keep his soul clean of worldly thoughts like passion. When she sees his reaction, she realizes that she really went too far by wearing an outfit like that because there's nothing cute about a Playboy bunny costume. On the other hand, Medaka says that she looks cute in that outfit. However, he reminds her that she is showing too much skin for her own sake. Then he leaves the room abruptly. Mona thinks about what she just heard and notices her heart giving a stronger bang, which makes her not understand anything since for her, Medaka was never such an attractive guy, or she liked him or something like that. In her mind, she is all about making him fall in love with her to prove herself. As for Medaka, he is all shy when he remembers that he called her cute, so he crosses himself to keep his spirit clean. The next morning, Mona goes to class all confident since even Medaka recognizes that she is cute. So her mission of making him bend his knees for her has already been accomplished. She tries to talk to him, thinking that the boy will answer her with a smile on his face. But instead, he keeps staring at her with that same serious look as always. When the time comes for the festival, all the girls dress up with bunny ears but without the short clothes part. This time, they start making some cupcakes to sell in the living room until suddenly some girls go to Mona and tell her to take a break from cooking. Mona then calls Medaka to take a break with her, but the boy insists on working harder, saying that he is not tired yet. However, Mona says that he must be hungry from working so hard. Medaka then eats a piece of the rabbit cake, saying that this will be enough to keep him full during work. But upon seeing him eating the customers' orders, another classmate of their class reprimands him. As for Mona, she notices that even though he called her cute, that doesn't mean she already has him in her hands. In fact, she feels like he's rejecting her even more than before since he's even stopped looking at her. At this, Mona deduces that he's just embarrassed for calling her cute out of the blue. Suddenly, Haruno comes up to them and asks the two of them to advertise the cafe outside the room to attract more customers. When passing by a haunted house-themed event, Mona is shocked and asks them to go look for clients somewhere else. But as soon as she looks at Medaka, she notices him with a look of happiness and then asks if he would like to enter the room. Medaka says that he doesn't mind entering or not. However, Mona notices by his look that the boy does, in fact, want to enter the room. With that, Mona decides to face her fear and convinces herself that there's nothing to fear. After all, the decoration of the haunted house was dumb and made by children, which makes her feel more relieved. But as soon as she enters the room and sees the costumes and makeup of the students, Mona is scared like a child and notices that the students really managed to make the room very sinister. As for Medaka, he appreciates the entire decoration of the room and also notices the cold air that the environment has, which makes the atmosphere even more frightening. At this, Mona finds it strange that Medaka is so excited even in such an environment. As they walk, Mona ends up getting her skirt caught in a grave and asks him to give her a second until she can free herself. However, Medaka ignores her and focuses his attention only on admiring the details of the room. As soon as he sees her trapped, Medaka covers his eyes, avoiding seeing the girl's skirt lifted. As for Mona, she runs out of the room, shouting to everyone that she hates haunted houses. Meanwhile, Haruno stays in the kitchen, cheering for Mona, hoping that she is getting along with Medaka. As for the boys next door, they warn her that the dumplings are burning. Returning to Mona, she says that Haruno's plan to bring her closer to Medaka ended up being a disaster in the end. But in the midst of her lamentations, she cheers up again and decides to make their journey more exciting. In this case, she takes him to eat crepes together. While she eats, Medaka alerts her to the drops of cream that are stuck to her cheek. So Mona takes advantage of this moment to try to provoke him even more, asking the boy to clean the cream for her. In the middle of all this, a bird simply flies by them and steals her crepe. As for Medaka, he noticed that this favored him since it made her forget about her request earlier. Moving on, they decide to watch a show together. However, as Mona is not able to see the show, she asks Medaka to help her by lifting her on his shoulders. But as soon as that man turns his face, she discovers that he is not Medaka. As they move on to another event, they grab some balloons to make molds with them. However, Mona's balloon ends up bursting, while Medaka's balloon remains intact. At this, she notices that all of her plans to try to win him over are going down the drain. Then she despairs, trying to think of something else that he might like. But when she looks at the clock, she notices that the cultural festival is about to end. In this case, she only has one more hour to try to win Medaka over. As she crosses so-called the Bridge of Love, Mona remembers what Haruno had told her, that every couple who passes by holding hands is destined to be in love with each other forever. Meanwhile, one of the boys burns the bunny cake and becomes desperate to fix that mess. On the other hand, Asahi keeps a sad expression on her face and decides to return to the club because she needs to meet up with the boys she missed during the event. Looking at the other couples on the Bridge of Love, Mona is surprised to see that they are all already full of love while busy holding hands. Suddenly, a strange couple beside Medaka and Mona begins to wonder who that guy is beside Mona, but after thinking a little more, he deduces that Medaka is Mona's boyfriend because that's the only way to explain why they are on the Bridge of Love. As soon as Mona hears this, she remembers when Haruno said that she was into Medaka even though she denied it to the death. Then Mona realizes that she will end up making all the other students get the same impression. As for Medaka, he suggests that they go back to the classroom, but instead, Mona decides to advertise their cafe right there because that way they will be able to take the couples to the cafe and could also disguise themselves. As for Mona, she explains to Medaka about the operation of the Bridge of Love and then touches his hand to provoke him. At that, Medaka, without being scared, decides to go back to the room alone since there is no way he will be complying with her offer. But before he can leave the place, Mona falls to the floor on purpose and asks him to help her get up after all, that way they end up holding hands inevitably. However, Medaka gets up holding her under the arms without having to give Mona his hands and thus protecting himself from the legend of the Bridge of Love. But Mona realizes that she is heavily falling in love with Medaka no matter what. And even taking this inverted, Mona decides to run after him to take him to the bridge again. She then says that it is early for them to go back to the room, therefore she suggests that they go back to the bridge. Suddenly, two girls from their class ask the two of them to go back to the cafe. After all, the couples from the Bridge of Love are crowding up the place, which is too hard for them to handle. Thereupon, sensing that she is about to lose her chance to get back at Medaka, she tries to mislead the girls by setting up an excuse to go somewhere else, but the girls insist that they should go back. Finally, upon reaching the end of the cultural festival, Mona realizes that she ended up losing her chance to drag Medaka to the Bridge of Love, so she decides to leave it for another day and go back home. Seeing Mona with a sad look on her face, Haruno notices that she couldn't fix anything with Medaka. So Haruno decides to help her again, sending Medaka and Mona to carry the desks together on the order of the committee. While they do the job, Mona keeps her gaze on the ground as she doesn't feel like she has enough energy to continue investing in Medaka, even though Haruno gave her another chance. Seeing Medaka in complete silence, Mona starts to feel embarrassed, and then she goes back to the simple subject of asking him if he had fun during the cultural festival. While Medaka remains silent, Mona notices that she just asked a very irrelevant question as she feels that she ended up ruining any good experience he could have had at the event. After all, everything she tried to do went very wrong. When she remembers this last plan, when she tried to hold his hand, Mona gets down when she sees that not even that worked. Suddenly, she ends up bumping into a box that starts falling toward her, but Medaka manages to see the box in time and saves her. But in the process, he ends up grabbing her hand. By coincidence, they are precisely in the area of the Bridge of Love. As soon as he realizes that he has grabbed the girl's hand, Medaka gets scared. He remembers that the festival is already over, so this legend no longer counts. Even knowing that he is right, Mona blushes the same way, which makes her not understand what is going on. When Medaka starts to fix the fallen boxes, he finally answers the question she had asked him back there, saying that he had a lot of fun that day. After all, this is the first time he participated in an event like that and did most of those things. Well, the next day when going to school, Haruno sees a lot of people holding hands and notices that the love of the couples really increased after the cultural festival, which for Haruno is proof that the legend surrounding the event is real. As for Mona, she thinks the same as her friend and is surprised to discover that the Bridge of Love really works. During the conversation, Haruno asks Mona how her experience on the Bridge of Love with Medaka went. However, Mona simply changes the subject. After all, she doesn't have much to say, saying that the weather is very nice. Suddenly, upon seeing Medaka passing by them, Mona feels her heart beating too fast, and as soon as he turns to look at her, Mona automatically hides. But upon remembering all the advances she made on him the night before, Mona gathers courage and greets him. Then she goes to the classroom with him and the other friends. That's when one of the boys suggests that they go bowling together after class as a way to celebrate the end of the cultural festival that took place the day before. When Haruno sees that Mona will go with them, Haruno decides to go too. Already at the bowling alley, Mona makes a perfect strike and then looks back at Medaka, hoping that he saw her move. When she returns to her friends, she touches everyone's hand in a high-five motion as a way to celebrate the strike. But when it is her turn to touch Medaka's hand, Medaka begins to suffer with shame and remembers the moment when they shook hands. Mona also remembers and disguises it by saying that her shoelace is snapped and runs off to change her shoelaces almost instantly. After this interaction with Mona, Medaka feels that his heart starts to race. After all, he has never touched a girl's hand before since he has never been in the company of so many. In this, he begins to imagine himself touching her hand. When he realizes that he would have liked to have touched her hands, Medaka soon clears his thoughts again, saying that he enrolled in a mixed school just to train his mind to always be as pure as possible. As soon as Mona returns, she asks to sit next to him. Listening to him drinking soda, she says she is thirsty and asks to take a sip. At that, Medaka remembers that he has already touched his mouth on the bottle. Upon hearing this, Mona becomes tense but tries to control her mind, telling herself that there's nothing wrong with that. As she brings her mouth closer to the bottle, Medaka stares at her more and more tensely. Finally, Mona drinks the soda and says that they have just given an indirect kiss, wanting to provoke the boy. Having done that, she turns the bottle back to him and shows that she sees no problem. Instead, Medaka leaves with the same tough, cold, and strict poker face, saying that she will not drink the soda anymore. So he leaves and she drinks the rest by herself. The girl stays behind, all sad. With that said, he goes back to the bowling alley and is relieved to have survived all that temptation. However, when throwing the bowling ball at the pins, he misses badly, due to his nervousness about the previous situation. The next day, Mona goes to class wearing the school's winter uniform, and as soon as she comes in with that look, all the students start complimenting her, saying that she looks really good in that uniform. Upon seeing that Medaka still hasn't changed out of his school's winter sweater, Mona goes to him and advises him to do so since the sweater is much more popular than the standard uniform. During their interaction, she gets all cute, hiding her hand in her pose and leaving all the boys with a premise of sweet dreams at night. While Medaka is a fool, he stands firm in the face of that temptation and says that he doesn't intend to change into the sweater since he doesn't usually feel cold in any way. Upon seeing this, Mona goes back to sitting in her seat with an angry face. Meanwhile, Medaka receives a message from Sho, who calls him so they can talk in private. As soon as Medaka meets the boy, Sho asks when he will continue to treat Mona like she is a piece of garbage. Medaka tries to explain again about the precepts of being the owner of a shrine, but before he can talk about the subject, Sho tells Medaka to shut up and says that he just has to not fall in love with Mona, and that way he will be able to stay within the norms of his religion. Besides, Sho remembers that Mona gets very depressed when Medaka treats her like trash, but still, The girl continues to talk to him as if Medaka cares about her. Therefore, Sho says that he can only be a saint for putting up with being treated like that, and she still wants to get close to Medaka. Meanwhile, Yuzuru tells Medaka that just talking to girls is not enough to make him break the precepts of his religion. Even more, Yuzuru advises Medaka to repay Mona's kindness because his religion probably tells him to be nice to other people. As soon as he leaves the boys behind, Medaka makes his way back to the room. But suddenly, he is approached by Haruno, who starts complaining to him, asking why Medaka is so rude to Mona for no reason. After all, the girl always does a lot for him. Haruno feels that he is the biggest fool for not treating Mona with the respect she deserves. While they fight, all the other classmates stand at the side watching everything and deduce that Haruno and Medaka are having a fight and breaking up. Upon seeing this, Haruno ends the discussion there and runs to the classroom. Then Medaka sees Mona helping the teacher take the papers to the teacher's room. Upon seeing this, Medaka realizes that Mona really is just a good girl. The next day, he continues with these things in his head, and upon seeing that she forgot to bring her book, he calls her to share the book with him. At that, Mona promptly starts to approach him, taking her desk with her. But upon seeing this, the idiot gets scared and moves his desk away as if he were running away from a cockroach, almost as if he was disgusted by her. At that moment, Sho and Yuzuru notice that scene from afar and start cursing him in their minds. So Medaka fixes things by sticking his desk with hers in the corner, saying that he was scared because she came so fast, and he didn't expect her to jump towards him like that. At that moment, seeing that he has sorted things out, Yuzuru, Sho, and Haruno are all relieved. As for Medaka, he keeps in mind that he will not fall in love with her, in which case he will just start being nicer to the girl. But Mona, in turn, gives a huge smile, which Haruno takes the opportunity to take a photo of as she is radiant. Mona wakes up on a cold, rainy morning. Looking into the mirror, she is greeted by the frizz of her hair. Noticing the rain outside, she irons her hair, trying to make it less frizzy as it appears. Rainy mornings are not her favorite. This means she needs to style her hair a little longer, and on top of that, her favorite loafers just get soaked in water. However, she has no other choice. Walking in her pink umbrella, Mona feels great. Although this is not the usual reaction she gets every time it rains, this day is just different. It is as if everything works according to her satisfaction. While walking happily, she remembers Medaka's words. She says to herself, finally, Medaka succumbs unto her. It seems as if the universe is on her side as she sees a figure of a man standing at the side of a road. Like a locked target, her eyes land on Medaka, and just like that, her heart starts to feel ecstatic again. Mona greets Medaka, asking him what happened and why he does not have an umbrella in this pouring rain. Medaka, though silent, seems uncomfortable with the presence of Mona. Meanwhile, Mona recalls that whenever she greets Medaka, he always reacts in an arrogant manner, but this time he does not seem to mind, although it is quite noticeable that Medaka is bothered. Medaka tells her he finds a family of cats on the side of the road, so he gives them his umbrella. Mona, touched by this, tells him just how sweet that is, and then she invites him to share her umbrella so they can go to school together. Afraid he would complain, Mona grabs Medaka by his arm. And although Medaka is a bit annoyed, Mona insists. Medaka remembers his friend's advice to be nice to Mona, so he tries not to be rude and offers to hold the umbrella since he's taller. The two of them silently walk under the pouring rain. Mona, still in awe, cannot believe it is actually happening. A small umbrella barely covers them both, and she notices Medaka's shoulders drenched in rainwater, so she scoots closer to him. Surprisingly, she does not get any reaction from Medaka, so she assumes it is okay. She then puts her hands above Medaka's hand, which is holding the umbrella, and with this, Medaka cannot resist any longer. He tries to avoid her by creating space between them, but no matter how hard Medaka tries, Mona stubbornly follows, only getting closer to Medaka whenever he tries to get away from her. This keeps going until they are faced with a metal post. Medaka is on the verge of getting annoyed, so he tries to calm himself down while Mona tells him to get closer in order to avoid the post. Finally, they arrive at the school. Though they still get wet from the rain, they decide to go through the rear gate in order to have a little cover while going to their classroom. As they pass by the gym, a group of girls plays basketball. One girl noticeably stands out among them, Asahi. Asahi shoots the ball and a couple of girls cheer for her. Seeing this, Medaka cannot help but praise the lady. Rumors among the crowd now start to be heard. They talk about her and how good she is as a basketball player, considering that she is still a freshman. Getting distracted by the game, Mona accidentally drops her umbrella, which makes a faint sound loud enough to draw attention from the silent crowd. Due to this, even Asahi, who is currently dribbling the ball, becomes distracted. Looking at where the sound is coming from, Asahi's eyes catch Medaka. Shocked by this scene, she uncontrollably loses her balance and ends up landing on the floor face first. Meanwhile, the ball she is holding flies right in front of Mona, and as she is about to get hit, Medaka quickly takes action, placing his hand in front of Mona to save her from the ball that is about to hit her. Asahi's fall makes quite a scene, though she immediately stands up and asks for an apology from Mona. Mona, on the other hand, says she should be the one apologizing. To her surprise, Asahi actually agrees. She says that Mona should not have been a distraction and should not be watching from there. Instead, she should be up on the benches if she wants to watch. Because of her harsh words, the other girls behind her tell her to show respect to her seniors, but Asahi does not seem to care. Mona also says she is right and she attempts to leave, but before she can, Asahi grabs her by the arm, telling her she needs to ask her a question or two. Mona, though hesitant, is dragged by Asahi to the other part of the gym helplessly. As it turns out, Asahi is curious about what's up between Mona and Medaka. It seems like she is also interested in him. Mona tells her they were just classmates, but Asahi did not believe this because they came to the gym together carrying only one umbrella that they might have shared along the way. Asahi asked more questions such as if they were dating or if she liked him. Mona denies all of this, but Asahi seems to be furious. Noticing this, she was taken away by two of her teammates who told her to stop bothering Mona already. As Mona and Medaka continue to walk on the way to their class, Mona mentions the conversation with Asahi. However, Medaka did not seem to know her. Mona thought about how could he not know Asahi when Asahi knew his name. Only then did she realize that Asahi might have liked Medaka, which is why she asked her those questions. Before arriving at the class, Medaka sneezed. This may be due to his wet clothes, so he decided to change first. Because of this, Mona is left alone to think she's getting close to Medaka. Will this Asahi girl be her competition? In the classroom, a friend of Mona takes her photos. She asks her about Asahi as she tells her she is not only pretty, but also famous. As a first year, Asahi is already the star player of their basketball team and even made it to the news. A group of girls came closer when they heard Mona and her friend talking about Asahi. They joined the conversation, saying Asahi was also top of the class. Mona pretended to be amazed and praised her, but in reality she was actually threatened by how big of a competitor Asahi could be. They even compare Asahi to Mona, saying Mona is peppy while Asahi is cool, and that she does not let seniors boss her around. Her cold shoulder is also something fans look forward to. Just when Mona decides to stop thinking about her, she receives an unexpected visitor. Asahi standing in the doorway, waiting for her. She came to say their conversation earlier wasn't finished yet, but she was caught off guard when she noticed that Medaka was standing right behind Mona. Her face instantly turns red and her cold and arrogant demeanor shifts into a shy and soft girl. Medaka recognized her from the basketball earlier, and because of this, she was flattered and blushed even more. Her knees also became soft and she fell to the ground. Because she was wearing a short, flowy uniform skirt, her panties were visible. Mona, startled by this, could not help but shout at her. Only then did she realize her underwear was showing. Meanwhile, Medaka, together with his other guy friend, turns around in order not to see this scene. Embarrassed, she decided to run away, but before doing that, she told Mona she wouldn't lose. Did she just declare war? Mona thought to herself. The next day, rain is still pouring hard, and Mona can't stop thinking about Asahi's words. It was the first time anyone had ever declared war against her. Mona, in deep thought, noticed a girl standing at the door, Asahi. She was waiting for her once again. Asahi was staring coldly at her. When someone sneezed behind her back, it was Medaka standing behind Asahi. He told her that if she was there for someone, he could call them for her. Once again, Asahi turned red. He could not even greet a single good morning when faced with Medaka. Not letting this slip, Mona races through the door, greeting both Asahi and Medaka. Mona invites Medaka to go inside the room already since homeroom is about to start. With this, Medaka tells Asahi to head back as well. To their surprise, Asahi turns cherry red once again before walking away like a robot. Inside the classroom, Mona heard Medaka whispering about Asahi. This means she left a mark on his mind as well. She instantly became furious. Just when she was making progress, Asahi got in her way. On the other hand, Asahi is talking to her friend about how she admires Medaka. Her friend told her that if Mona does not like Medaka, then it is her chance. However, Asahi gets really nervous whenever she is around him. Suddenly, she heard a group of boys at the back hovering about a sensual photo. Her friend tells her scenes like that leave a mark on their minds. Asahi just agrees with this coldly. In gym class, Mona and her classmates are set to play basketball. This time, she plans to replace the basketball girl image of Asahi in Medaka's mind. As she put up a ponytail, everyone turned to look at her, admiring just how pretty she is in any hairstyle she pulls. The boys were the first ones to play, and Medaka was instantly hit on his first try. He was not good at basketball at all. Meanwhile, Mona, with her plan in mind, tried so hard to slay the game. She became so competitive that everyone admired her even more. In the last game for the boys, Medaka missed a free shot, so in the end they lost. Everyone in the gym heads out except for Medaka, who could not just accept his defeat. To his surprise, Mona speaks from behind. He was shocked to see her there, all beautiful and sexy. She offers to help him with the game and even volunteers to clean up for him. With this, Medaka calms himself. Clean mind, clean spirit. They start by practicing his shooting form. Mona is holding him from behind, which makes him really uncomfortable. As she continues to teach him, Asahi arrives, catching them in an awkward position. Mona explains she was just teaching him his shooting form, but Asahi proceeds to tell her that she probably likes him, looking at how clingy she is around him. Asahi then offers to coach Medaka as well. She drops on the floor and planks, saying core strength is essential for shooting. As she instructed, Medaka also planked in front of her. With his position, he could slightly see the insides of Asahi's shirt, making him red and uncomfortable. Seeing his reaction, Mona decides to also plank with them so Medaka's attention would not be drawn to Asahi alone. Mona clearly has a bigger chest than Asahi. With this, Asahi asked if Medaka dislikes smaller sizes. That was Medaka's last straw, just like a bomb waiting to explode, finally could not handle it anymore. He crawls away while shouting, leaving the two girls in shock. After that, Asahi could be seen in the stairway. Covering her red face, she contemplates what she did, realizing she may have crossed the line. While Mona ran under the pouring rain, faced with the same scenario, also regretting her actions earlier. In class, everything Mona is looking forward to suddenly vanishes. Seeing Medaka's seat empty, she just sighs in disappointment. Her classmates are also talking about it, saying it is not his habit to skip classes, so he's probably out sick because of yesterday's PE class. They also mention how he left all his belongings in the gym and ran away, so the run must have caused his sickness. Her classmates also mention how this is such a weird thing to do, so Mona thinks back on everything that had happened yesterday, how she and Asahi competed for Medaka's attention. She did not expect Asahi to be that daring. However, she also thinks back to the moment they shared a single umbrella. Maybe that's the reason why he became sick. Mona hears her classmates chatting, saying they should visit Medaka since he lives alone and anything could happen to him while he's sick. On the other hand, Asahi also comes across the news that Medaka is sick. She thinks it is her fault that he is, so her friend suggests she should visit her. The practices are off since the tourney ended, so she must have a lot of time. Meanwhile, a group of boys from across the room are talking about how great a girl looks with her cosplay costume. Though Asahi disagrees with this, her friend tells her it is a way of seeing people in a new light. The guys talking about Medaka earlier decide to visit him. While they are walking to his house, they are oblivious to the person following behind them. It's Mona with her sunglasses in disguise, trying to follow them to know where Medaka's house is. Arriving at the house, she decides to keep hiding until the two go out before making her move. However, she is surprised by an arm on her head. Asahi also comes to look for Medaka's house, ready to compete with Mona once again. Mona pretends to be civil towards her and asks whether she lives nearby, but Asahi boldly declares she is there for Medaka since she hears he's sick. Asahi also clarifies that since Mona and Medaka are not dating, then there should be no problem for her to visit him there. Mona is annoyed by this, but she tries hard to conceal it. Asahi also asks her why she's following to his place if she says she does not like him. Inside the house, Medaka's friends are glad that he looks okay, so after checking up on him, they quickly leave the house, and that is when Asahi and Mona get inside. They ring the doorbell, and the door is immediately opened by Medaka, who is in his pajamas and wearing a face mask to cover his mouth. He asks where Mona learns his address, but Mona refuses to answer. Meanwhile, Asahi faintly greets him in a cold but shy tone. The girls invite themselves in while Medaka is in panic mode because he never had a single girl in his life, but now she has two ladies entering his home. He thinks about what could happen, given that they know he lives alone. He nearly faints, but he keeps himself together, saying he got everything covered and will not be needing any help, so they must leave. Mona takes a bold move and comes closer to Medaka. She leans her forehead to Medaka's to check his temper. Now they are so close to each other, and it makes Medaka panic even more. Even Asahi becomes annoyed by this. She notices his high temperature, so she declares to nurse him until he is well, while Asahi also follows right behind her, willing to do the same. Getting inside Medaka's room, the two instantly notice the scent of soap inside his place. Asahi tells him to relax and hydrate himself, handing him the bag she's holding full of stuff she brought for him. The two try their best to impress Medaka. Mona cooks him a porridge while Asahi cuts an apple in cute shapes for him. However, Asahi seems to be having trouble slicing a single fruit, so Mona suggests she should learn to do it first. The two of them present Medaka with the most good-looking food, while Asahi thinks to herself that she must step up her game since she needs Mona's help most of the time. Mona is the first one to take action by taking a spoonful of porridge and feeding it to Medaka, but Medaka quickly refuses, saying he can do it by himself. Asahi does not let this pass and offers to put a cooling pad on Medaka's forehead, by which Mona follows as well until Medaka's face is full of patches. Medaka does not know what to do, while the two only heats the competition even more. While Medaka is pulling off the cooling pads from his face, Mona comes to him with a first aid kit and a sexy nurse costume, which is so body-hugging her curves come out. Mona takes care of him in a flirtatious manner, even pulling out the thermometer from between her chest and kneeling in front of Medaka to let him see the full view. But when she is just about to check his temperature, Asahi arrives with a similar costume. Mona instantly notices it is the spare costume she brought. Asahi sits beside Medaka and examines him with her stethoscope. At this point, Mona is boiling with anger, not only because she's stealing Medaka's attention, but also because she stole her spare costume. After some time, Medaka finally falls asleep, and the two of them can rest with their competition as well. The two of them start to have a conversation, but Medaka tends to wake up even on the faintest sound, so they decide to move into the kitchen. Mona tells Asahi she's not so shy around Medaka anymore. Asahi tells her she is not over it yet, but it's different when there is a competition around. Mona asks why she's trying so hard, and Asahi does not deny the fact that the reason for this is because she likes him. Still, Mona refuses to believe that's her only reason after all. She is the queen bee of the school, so she's a tough competitor. She will not go against Mona like that if she simply likes him. Asahi answers she likes him on a deeper level, like holding hands or even kissing. She then comes to her senses and realizes she should not be talking about that with Mona, so she runs to the door and volunteers to buy drinks. Being left alone, Mona sits beside the sleeping Medaka, thinking back at what Asahi told her. She finds it impressive what people can do for love. To her surprise, Medaka suddenly wakes up and sits straight. He faces her and she asks him how he feels, but he does not answer. He just hugs her tightly and her eyes widen because of shock. Asahi, on the other hand, is walking on the road to buy some drinks. She remembers the first time she saw Medaka. Back then, she never believed in love at first sight. She did not know it could happen. But when she bumped into the most beautiful guy he has ever seen, she felt butterflies on her stomach. When he picked up the things Asahi dropped, she instantly knew she was in love. Inside the house, Medaka and Mona are still hugging, but Mona realizes Medaka is still asleep. He talks although his eyes are closed, and he is talking about someone called Tama. This startles Mona, so she puts Medaka back to his lying position on his bed. Examining his face, her gaze lands on Medaka's lips. Asahi's words echo in her mind. Asahi wants to kiss Medaka. She leans closer to the sleeping Medaka, her face getting closer and closer to his, but she gains back her senses. That is an indecent thing to do. Arriving just in time, Asahi comes in and sees the scene. She accuses Mona of jumping into Medaka's bed while she is away, but Medaka tells them to keep quiet, so they go outside to talk. Asahi is enraged as she once again accuses Mona of being in love with Medaka, even though she denies this 1,000 times already. She points out how in love she looked earlier when she was looking at Medaka. Asahi's voice becomes loud and enraged as Mona cannot hide it any longer. She tells her she just wants him to fall for her because he refuses to do so. Asahi gets it now because Mona is the most beautiful thing on campus. Everyone is falling for her, but Medaka is different. He refuses to fall for her, so she is trying her best to make him. However, Asahi still has a little doubt in her mind. She looks like she is in love with him. She realizes it could be possible that Mona hasn't realized her feelings for Medaka yet. It all starts that way, like how her feelings started for him too. Asahi stops for a while to think, then she grabs the doorknob and tells Mona to come inside and says they should leave after Medaka feels better. She also tells her she will not tell a soul about what she said, so they are even. The night falls and Medaka wakes up from his sleep. She finds a porridge and a sliced apple on her tabletop with a note coming from both Mona and Asahi. The next day, Mona is bored. She silently wishes that Medaka will come to school that day. Asahi is also sitting beside her, telling her she hopes Medaka is feeling better already. She even says her heart hurts from worrying too much about him. Mona tells her it's too early for that, so Asahi says she's just saying her thoughts for her. Asahi is already getting to Mona's nerves. The last few days, all she could do is peek through the door, but now she's getting into her mind. However, Mona refuses to drop her act and still pretends to be cute and soft toward Asahi, even though she told her to stop acting already. Two guys approach and they greet Mona. They also notice Asahi is there, so they ask what she's doing in the second year's classroom. Although Mona does not want to disclose what kind of relationship they have, Asahi tells them they went to check on Medaka yesterday together. Mona is left with no choice but to make up a story about how she bumped into Asahi along the way. Meanwhile, Sobami, who is Mona's close friend, knows Asahi is her rival when it comes to Medaka, so she's confused as to why they start acting like friends. This made her realize she wanted to be close to Mona, but she hadn't even called her by her first name yet, and now someone else is trying to steal her friendship with her. Sobami joins in the conversation while secretly giving Asahi a piercing stare when Medaka suddenly walks inside the room. His face looks pale, but he tells them he's okay, thanking them for choking on him yesterday as well. Asahi also greets him a good morning, to which he responds. Mona's eyes instantly rage because of that. Asahi then runs away once she's done greeting Medaka. Now seated, Mona cannot stop herself from frowning. Her face is red. Asahi got her all worked up and tensed. Medaka, who is sitting right beside her, wants to tell her something. However, she becomes so anxious that she just tells him she's busy looking at her phone. She does not understand why she stopped Medaka too, but now that she started it, she must go on with her act. Each time Medaka attempts to talk to her, she finds excuses to avoid him. One time, she runs away to avoid him, but only ends up bumping behind him because she ran in his circle. The impact makes her dizzy, and when she's about to run, her vision turns black and she ends up in a hospital room. Waking up in a white, bright room, Mona wonders what happened. Beside her is Medaka, who tells her she caught a fever. She touches her forehead to confirm this, and she indeed has it. Medaka needs to go back to class, so she tells Mona to wait for the nurse. Mona thanks him for that and asks him if he carried her. Medaka does not answer. He just tells her it is probably his fault that she's sick. He then thanks her for being with him yesterday. That was all they wanted to say to her all day. Then he leaves, Mona blushing, thinking about all the ways he might have carried her to the clinic. The scene opens in a noisy classroom. Medaka's friends are huddled together, snickering as they pull a prank on him. They grab his phone, and before he can stop them, change his lock screen to an image of a sexy, nearly naked woman. Their goal is simple. They want to help him develop resistance to pervy stuff by constantly exposing him to it. However, no matter how hard he tries, Medaka just can't bring himself to look at it. Frustrated, he grabs his phone and storms out of the room. Standing in the hallway, he takes a deep breath and forces himself to delete the image. He doesn't need such a thing, and he certainly doesn't want it. Meanwhile, Tsubomi is busy scrolling through photos of Mona, carefully selecting one to send to Medaka. As she focuses on her task, Mona approaches and curiously asks what she's up to. Without hesitation, Tsubomi explains that Asahi, Mona's rival, has been hanging around Medaka's classroom for days now. Since she considers herself Mona's friend, she naturally sees Asahi as a rival too. To counter this, she wants Medaka's lock screen to feature Mona's photo instead. Although Mona never planned to be on Medaka's lock screen, she finds the idea amusing. However, the moment she checks the photo Tsubomi sent, her face turns bright red. The image is anything but flattering. She looks ridiculous, at least in her own eyes. She begs Tsubomi to unsend it because it does not look like her at all. However, when Tsubomi is about to do it, her phone turns off because of an empty battery, so she just apologizes. This leaves Mona to deal with it on her own. Determined to get rid of the embarrassing photo before anyone else can see it, Mona sets out to find Medaka. She hurries through the school halls, scanning every corner for him. As she passes by, students greet her with admiration, some even pausing to compliment her beauty. Meanwhile, Medaka is still struggling with his own dilemma. Staring at the pervy-looking photo still lingering on his lock screen, he debates whether to delete it or not. Just as he gathers the resolve to remove it, he receives a new notification from Tsubomi. He hesitates, wary of opening his phone in public. If anyone catches a glimpse of his screen, he'll never live it down. Wanting to deal with the situation in private, he begins searching for a quiet place where no one will see him. Unbeknownst to him, Mona is not far behind, desperately trying to catch up before it's too late. Just when Medaka finds the perfect place to delete the photo, Mona finally finds him and races towards him. This makes him extremely surprised. He falls on the ground, giving Mona the chance to snatch his phone away from him and delete the message Tsubomi sent him. However, when she exits the open message, she sees the sexy girl's photo in Medaka's lock screen. Wanting to clear up any misunderstanding, he quickly explains why the image was there in the first place, hoping she won't get the wrong idea. Mona, however, simply returns his phone without a word and walks away. Medaka is left confused about how Mona reacted. He cannot guess what kind of emotions she was displaying a while ago. Meanwhile, Mona stands just outside the door, leaning against the wall. The moment she saw his lock screen, something about it felt strange. And to make matters worse, the girl in that image wasn't even that cute. Compared to her, Mona was much cuter. Back in class, Mona fixes her gaze on Medaka, staring so intently that it starts to make him uncomfortable. Mona finds it puzzling how Medaka can directly look at the picture and yet cannot succumb to her. As she watches him, she overhears his conversation with his friends. Medaka casually mentions that he has changed his lock screen back and insists that he doesn't want it altered again. His friends groan in frustration, calling his usual lock screens boring. They tease him, saying it should at least be a girl, preferably someone cute. As they continue joking about changing it again, a sudden worry creeps into Mona's mind. If they mess with his phone, he might end up with another random girl's photo. Not wanting to take any chances, Mona quickly takes a picture of herself and sends it to Medaka, pretending it was a mistake. The moment the message arrives, his friends go wild, shocked that he received a picture from Mona herself. They loudly acknowledge how lucky he is, hyping up the moment as if it were a big deal. But just as their excitement reaches its peak, Medaka calmly taps the delete button, erasing the photo without a second thought. Mona cannot react any further with Tsubomi arrives, holding a Halloween pumpkin in her hands and showing it to her. Halloween is coming up, so the people are giving out pumpkins. Tsubomi sees this event as an opportunity to take photos of Mona in a cute Halloween costume, while Mona sees this as an opportunity to make her photo Medaka's lock screen. Excited by the idea, she takes things a step further and invites everyone to a Halloween party. With her charm and influence, the idea spreads like wildfire, and the class quickly jumps on board. Enthusiasm fills the room, and one classmate even offers his place as the venue. Everything seems to be coming together perfectly, but when Medaka is asked if he's going, he immediately declines. However, his friends will not make this happen, so they convince Medaka to come until he agrees. This makes Mona cheer because she already has a plan in mind to wear a cute costume Medaka likes, so he'll finally make her his lock screen. To make her plan succeed, she wants to know what will Medaka be like. Unbeknownst to her, Asahi is peeking through the door, watching her every move. The next day, Medaka and his friends are seen in the middle of the city. They are waiting for Mona there. Medaka's friends are excited to see Mona and even fantasize about how she will look outside her uniform. But this thought only freaks Medaka out. Soon enough, Tsubomi arrives, followed by Mona. She is wearing a simple yet sexy outfit that sent everybody in awe. As expected, Tsubomi immediately starts snapping photos, showering Mona with praise and fangirling over her flawless appearance. Meanwhile, Medaka quietly retreats to a corner, struggling to steady himself. Mona remains determined to find out what kind of costume Medaka would be interested in, carefully observing his reactions as they prepare to leave. Just as their group is about to head off, another unexpected presence joins them. Asahi appears, dressed in her usual casual baggy clothes, her expression unreadable. One of Medaka's friends tells them he is the one who invited Asahi to join them. Though Asahi has never shown much interest in Halloween parties, she surprises everyone by saying it actually sounds fun. Mona, however, isn't fooled. She smirks to herself, quickly realizing that Asahi must have been eavesdropping again. Despite Asahi's usual cold and distant demeanor, it is quite noticeable how easily the composure wavers whenever Medaka speaks to her. So before she freezes out in the presence of him, they all decide to go into the store. They went inside the costume store and everything just looked amazing there. They decide to split into groups of boys and girls. Mona tries on different types of costumes, all of which look good on her. As she continues searching for the perfect look, she passes by Asahi, who is also scanning the racks with a focused expression. It isn't hard to guess what she's doing. She must want to look good for Medaka as well, but with Mona's cosplaying experience and fashion expertise, she is confident she will not beat her with this. As Asahi and Minami are busy trying on costumes, Mona takes the opportunity to sneak away and spy on the boys. Her goal is clear, to eavesdrop on their conversation and find out what kind of costume Medaka would prefer. After some time spent searching through the store, she finally locates them. She silently creeps closer, careful not to be noticed. Her patience pays off when the boys start discussing the types of girl costumes they'd like to see. This is exactly the conversation Mona has been hoping to overhear. She listens intently, trying to gauge Medaka's preferences without giving herself away. However, in her excitement, she gets too close for comfort. Medaka, sensing something is off, notices her silhouette at the edge of the aisle. Because of this, she decides to leave before she's caught. But as she makes a hasty retreat, she accidentally knocks a hanger off the rack, causing a loud clatter that immediately raises the guy's suspicions. So when Medaka goes to check what is on the next aisle, she covers her head of the horse costume and successfully escapes his gaze. She breathes a quiet sigh and sits on the floor, successfully avoiding discovery. The guys continue to walk through the aisles of the girls' costumes, and finally, after quite some time of his friend's hard try, Medaka finally chooses his favorite costume for a girl. Mona, still hiding behind the horse costume on her head, watches from a corner, trying to get a glimpse of the costume Medaka is pointing to. Unfortunately, the costumes are hung too closely together, and the horse's head obscures her vision, making it impossible to see which one he's picked. Despite the difficulty, Mona isn't ready to give up. With a mix of anticipation and doubt, she checked and picked the costume she remembered. To her shock, the outfit is far more revealing than she could have imagined, vulgar even. Mona stares at the costume, her mind racing. She can't believe Medaka would pick something like it. But she cannot choose something else at that time. Tsubomi comes to ask her if she finally finds her costume, which pushes her to just settle with the one she's holding. She will do anything for her to outsmart Asahi in this one. Medaka's friends are done picking their costumes, and they are very excited to see what the girls picked. While the girls are getting ready, they talk about how Halloween parties are all about the girls' costumes, which is why they do not really pay attention to their own style. Rather, they are waiting to see what the girls got. Tsubomi is the first to step forward, nervously adjusting her outfit. She wears a green dress that stops just above the knee, paired with delicate wings that give her the appearance of a pixie or fairy. Despite looking absolutely adorable, Tsubomi can't hide her shyness, her cheeks flushing as she stands before the group. Next up is Asahi, who confidently strides into view. She's dressed in a sleek black dress, casual yet conservative, perfectly capturing her goth style. The outfit matches her cold, stoic demeanor and makes her look effortlessly cool. Her expression is as unreadable as ever, but it's clear she owns the look. Finally, it's Mona's turn. She steps forward in her chosen costume. A mummy outfit made entirely of bandages that barely cover some parts of her body. She feels the weight of the stairs on her and the discomfort of being so exposed. Her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she's determined to go through with it. She wants to cater to Medaka's tastes, even if it means stepping far outside her comfort zone. What Mona doesn't realize is that Medaka hadn't chosen the mummy costume at all. He had picked the one next to it, a different outfit entirely. When his friend says this, Mona can't bear it any longer, so she quickly pulls the curtains shut with frustration, attempting to explain that this isn't really her style. After the group finishes trying on costumes, the group chats outside for a bit. Mona casually explains that she was joking about the mummy outfit and plans to keep her actual costume a surprise for the party. She's the queen bee and she will not let anything stand against her plans. Today is the day of the long-awaited Halloween party. Mona is eager to impress Medaka, so she carefully selects the costume he likes, the one right next to the mummy outfit she first tried on in the store. When Mona, Tsubame, and Asahi arrive at the venue, they find the other guests already dressed in their costumes, except for Medaka, who is still in his regular clothes. The three girls decide to get changed, each pulling out a paper bag containing their outfits. They head to the guest room to dress up. Tsubame can barely contain her excitement when she sees Mona in a witch costume looking as adorable as ever. Mona, on the other hand, is surprised to find that Asahi has chosen the exact same costume she had picked out earlier at the store. Meanwhile, Tsubame, who had originally planned to wear a fairy dress, has instead opted for a ghost costume that covers almost her entire body, even her face. Too embarrassed to show any skin, she decided the ghost costume was the safer choice. Just as the three are about to leave, Mona suddenly remembers she left her witch hat in the guest room. With a quick excuse, she rushes back to retrieve it. As she picks up the hat and tries to put it on, she feels a sudden chill on her back. Confused, she reaches behind her and realizes with horror that the zipper of her dress has slid down, exposing her bare skin. She frantically tries to pull it up, but no matter how much she tugs, the zipper only seems to go lower. Panic sets in. Desperate, Mona peeks out of the guest room, scanning the hallway for help. Just then, a figure in ghost costume walks past. Thinking it's Tsubame, she wastes no time and quickly drives them inside. Unbeknownst to her, the person beneath the ghost costume isn't Tsubame, it's Medaka. Now standing in the middle of the women's changing room, Medaka freezes. His mind struggles to process the situation, but he is even more surprised when he sees Mona's exposed back. Medaka is so confused that he thinks Mona is tempting her again, but when Mona calls him Tsubame, he realizes that she just mistakes him for Tsubame. Medaka's instincts scream at him to confess, to tell her it's a misunderstanding, but it's too late. Mona is already waiting, expecting Tsubame to help. With his heart racing, Medaka hesitantly reaches for the zipper, his hands trembling as he slowly pulls it back up. Mona, now facing Medaka, notices how hard he tries to catch his breath. Thinking Tsubame must be having a hard time breathing inside the costume, she reaches for the ghost hood and pulls its zipper up without hesitation, only to reveal Medaka's flushed and panicked face. Realizing she mistook Medaka for Tsubame, Mona screams in embarrassment. The party starts to unfold because of the incident earlier. Mona ties the bottom part of Tsubame's costume to make sure she does not make the same mistake twice. The people are having fun at the party, having food and drinks, trick-or-treating, and chatting with each other. While everyone mingles, Mona sits quietly, deep in thought. Her mind isn't on the party, it's on Medaka. More specifically, on how to get him to put her photo as his lock screen. Last time, when she sent him a picture, he deleted it right away. If she tries the same approach again, the result will be no different. She needs a plan. Before she can think any further, the host suddenly calls for everyone's attention, inviting them to play a game. Excited murmurs spread through the crowd as the host explained the rules of the mummy game. Each team consists of one boy and one girl. The boy's job is to wrap the girl in toilet paper, mummifying her as completely as possible. The team with the best and most complete mummy wins. As Mona listens, an idea sparks in her mind. If she and Medaka pair up and win, they'll have a perfect excuse to take a picture together. A natural, innocent photo, one Medaka can't easily delete. To determine the pairs for the mummy game, everyone must draw a number from a box. Mona is determined, no matter what, she has to pair up with Medaka. As Medaka reaches into the box and pulls out a number, Mona subtly leans in, catching a glimpse of it. However, it does not turn out as easy as it looks, as Asahi is standing just next to her and hears her whisper the number 8, signifying that Mona wants to pair with Medaka. The moment the host calls for the girls to step forward, Mona and Asahi dash toward the box. But just then, Tsubame accidentally knocks the box, sending one of the balls flying out. the number 8 ball. Both Mona and Asahi lunge for it at the same time, grabbing it simultaneously. Neither of them is willing to let go. Asahi, being stronger, has the advantage. Mona struggles, her grip slipping as her strength starts to wane. Still, she refuses to give up. If she lets go now, her perfect plan will be ruined. Thinking fast, she suddenly calls out to Medaka. This distracts Asahi from her grip and causes her to let go. This time, Mona wins and she gets to pair up with Medaka. Although Mona hasn't gotten over the Zikra thing, she's determined to win. This is her chance to get a picture with Medaka. Meanwhile, Tsubomi sees this game as a perfect photo opportunity and takes candid photos of Mona and Medaka every chance she gets. Medaka starts wrapping Mona with toilet paper, starting from her feet and working all the way up. However, Mona notices Medaka's wrap is too loose, causing the toilet paper to fall down. Mona tells him to wrap it more tightly or they'll lose, but after what happened earlier, he just can't take it. Every time he wraps the toilet paper around her, her shit becomes more visible, and each time his hands run around her body, he's an inch away from touching her. Clearly, all Medaka wants to do is to get the job done. He does not care about winning, unlike Mona. Looking around, Mona sees the other duos working so fast and firm, so they will most likely lose if Medaka keeps going on like this. With desperation, she grabs Medaka by the arm and draws him closer to her body, wanting him to make a tighter wrap around her. She snatches the toilet paper from him, offering to help, then wraps it around her legs, thighs, and even around her waist. Mona is determined to win, but Medaka takes this act as a mere provocation rather than a game. She leaves the rest for Medaka to finish, but he just can't seem to get a hold of himself. Even a slight touch of the paper to her skin is already tempting him, making it hard for him to finish. Mona keeps urging him to be fast, but he just can't. Finally exploding, Medaka pushes himself away from Mona, causing the toilet paper to fall on the floor while he sits there catching his breath. In the end, it was Tsubomi and her pair who won the competition. Thanks to her ghost costume, Tsubomi becomes quite easy to mummify. As the winners, they pose for a celebratory photo together, which makes Mona extremely jealous and pissed off with Medaka. Meanwhile, two burbles approach Medaka to take a photo, to which he agrees. This scene shocks Mona, realizing it's actually okay for Medaka to take photos with girls. The girls came closer to him one by one to take a photo. While Medaka tries to be chill and look cool, he cannot hide his embarrassment. Mona, looking from a distance, is a bit annoying as well. She decides to join the crowd, but when she comes closer to Medaka, he instantly closes his ghost costume, hiding his face and putting Mona in an awkward situation. Eventually, it's time for the group photo. Mona and Medaka end up standing beside each other. It is nothing special compared to what Mona wanted. She can't hold back her frustration any longer. Just as the camera is about to flash, she calls him a dumbass. At that exact moment, Medaka turns to look at her. His expression is a bit shocked. The camera captures the split second where they're not smiling like the others, but locked in an intense exchange of looks. Later that evening, Mona cries in her room, completely burying her face with her mattress. The day after that, Medaka opens up to his friends. He thinks Mona is mad at him. When asked why, he explained the photo situation, which made his friends disappointed with him as well. After all, Mona is one of the most sought-after girls in the class. How can he just turn her down? Yuzuru also shows him their group photo, pointing out that there seems to be something going on between the two. When Medaka mentions that Mona called him a dumbass, both Yuzuru and Shu agree that he must have made Mona feel really hurt. That makes him feel even worse, so they urge him to apologize to her. Medaka admits his fault and agrees that he does need to apologize to Mona for his behavior. However, when Mona arrives, Medaka is taken aback just by seeing her. His friends thought this was the perfect time to apologize, but Medaka still can't figure out how. Instead of facing Mona, he runs away like a child, so his friends follow after him. Same with Medaka. Mona feels like Medaka is angry with her too. He has been avoiding her all day, and this made Mona believe it's all because of their interaction yesterday. In class, their instructor assigns them to clean a specific area. The class is paired up according to seatmates, and since Mona and Medaka sit beside each other, they are paired up for the cleaning assignment. Mona sees this as an opportunity to fix issues between her and Medaka. While cleaning, Mona sees another chance. She intentionally kneels in front of Medaka, her short skirt riding up just enough so that her thighs are right as eye level. Mona thought Medaka would forget all about yesterday because of this, but instead he volunteers to clean a different area so that he does not need to put up with Mona's temptations. Mona tries to stop him from leaving, but by doing so, she kicks the bucket filled with water they are using to clean the floor, splashes over Medaka, causing him to be soaking wet. Medaka cleans himself up while Mona lingers nearby, struggling to find the right words. She only wanted to make things right between them, but instead, she managed to create an entirely new problem. The thought weighs on her, and as frustration builds, her eyes begin to sting with tears. Determined not to let things end like this, she finally apologizes for what happened yesterday. To her surprise, Medaka says the exact same thing. Mona freezes for a moment, caught off guard. But Medaka calmly explains himself, admitting that he's never been good with photos and never meant to turn her down. Relief washes over her, and she apologizes for being grumpy as well. Before they can say anything else, Yuzuru and Shu walk in, checking if they have done their jobs, but scanning through the area, the floor is all wet, and the two have made no progress because of what happened. That night, Medaka casually scrolls through his phone, skimming through the photos from the previous day. As he pauses, a message notification pops up. Tsubame has sent him a candid shot of him and Mona. Without thinking, his fingers tap the screen and the photo accidentally sets itself as his lock screen. Then realizing what happened, he quickly changes it back. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a woman with a pink pixie cut and a paper bag in her hand steps onto the bustling pavements of Tokyo. Her eyes gleam with excitement. Mona wakes up to the sound of her phone buzzing. It's a message from Tomo, letting her know that she's currently in Tokyo. Tomo is her childhood best friend, and it has been a year and a half since they last saw each other. The thought of reuniting fills her with anticipation. Eager to catch up, Mona suggests they hang out, to which Tomo readily agrees, even offering to pick her up from school. However, Mona declines. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Medaka is talking with Yuzuru and Shu about going to karaoke. Though Yuzuru and Shu seem excited, Medaka is less enthusiastic since he is not so fond of singing. At the doorway, Asahi silently peeks inside, trying to catch a glimpse of Medaka, admiring him from afar. Just as she watches him, Medaka suddenly turns around and immediately notices her peeking through the door. Without hesitation, he starts walking in her direction. Startled, Asahi panics and runs away without saying a word, accidentally dropping her ID card in the process. Medaka picks it up from the floor, glancing at the name on it. Asahi sits beside Minami in their classroom, unable to shake off her frustration. Minami, noticing her restlessness, asks what her next move is, especially since Mona clearly has the upper hand. Asahi is determined to shift the situation in her favor, but isn't sure how to do it. Their conversation is interrupted by a group of students chatting about a movie's cliffhanger, which involves a dramatic kiss. This gives Minami a bold idea. Asahi should take Medaka's lips by force. That way, he won't be able to ignore her. Before Asahi can react to the ridiculous suggestion, Medaka suddenly appears at the doorway, specifically looking for her. Asahi freezes in shock, but Medaka simply holds up her ID card and returns it to her. She didn't even realize she had dropped it until now. As he turns to leave, Minami quickly stops him, asking about his plans for lunch. She declares that Asahi will treat him as a thank you for returning the ID. Asahi hesitates at Minami's scheme, but ultimately decides to go along with it. Minami gives her an encouraging push, whispering that this is her chance. She should go for a kiss or two. Though unsure, Medaka agrees. After all, it's just lunch. Meanwhile, Mona and Tsubame are eating together in the cafeteria. Noticing Mona is in a good mood today, Tsubame asks what's up. Mona opens up about how her childhood best friend is in Tokyo and they are hanging out later. Mona can't wait to see her, but also can't help but wonder why she's in Tokyo when she has classes she needs to attend. Asahi and Medaka are having lunch together, sitting side by side on a bench. Medaka casually eats his sandwich, appearing relaxed, while Asahi, on the other hand, is anything but. Tension grips her as she struggles to steady her nerves, still unable to believe she's alone with him. She attempts to start a conversation, but her words don't come out as planned. Unbeknownst to her, Medaka is just as flustered. He never imagined himself having lunch alone with a girl. Asahi finds it difficult to look at Medaka directly. The weight of her feelings makes it overwhelming. In a spur-of-the-moment decision, she covers his eyes with a blindfold. With him unable to see her, she finally feels comfortable gazing at him without hesitation. She enjoys this moment, but deep down, a stronger desire lingers. She wants to be more than just someone who shares lunch with him. If she were his girlfriend, she could have moments like this every day. Minami's words echo in Asahi's mind, fueling her determination. She brings up the Halloween party, mentioning how she didn't get enough time to be with Medaka. Wanting to seize the moment, she decides to play a little game of trick or treat with him. Medaka, still blindfolded and unaware of her intentions, hesitates. He doesn't have any treats to offer, nor can he even see what's happening. Left with no other choice, he allows Asahi to trick him. Asahi's heart races as she leans in closer and presses a soft kiss against his cheek. Medaka, oblivious to what just happened, remains still, completely unaware of the bold move Asahi just made. After class, Mona rushes out of school, eager to see Tomo again. Meanwhile, Tomo is effortlessly attracting attention from men, using her charms to get directions. When Mona arrives, she isn't surprised by Tomo's behavior. It's just how she has always been. The two embrace happily, while the men grow even more excited at the sight of them together. One of them even offers to treat them, but Tomo simply smirks and turns him down. With that, she and Mona walk away, leaving the disappointed men behind. The two hang out at a restaurant where Mona scolds Tomo for flirting with random boys while waiting. In response, Tomo makes up for it by giving Mona a souvenir from Osaka, her favorite pork buns. Mona's face lights up, but she doesn't forget to ask about Tomo's real reason for coming. Tomo vaguely answers that she's somehow sightseeing. Mona also notices Tomo's revealing outfit, which seems inappropriate for the cold weather. However, Tomo tells her she is in Tokyo, so she should dress the part. She even blows a kiss to a passing guy, instantly charming him, declaring her plan to take every Tokyo boy's heart on fire. When Tomo asks why Mona wants to meet outside of school, Mona explains that she doesn't want to mix school friends and childhood friends. Tomo figures she must be putting on a cutesy-ditzy act at school. It takes her back to when they were in school together, and all the boys were crazy about Mona, but she ended up rejecting all of them. Tomo also had a bunch of boyfriends. Every time Mona turned down a guy, Tomo was there to pick them up, yet none of those relationships actually lasted. Now, Tomo is single again and wants to date a Tokyo man. When asked about relationships, Mona cannot answer since she has never had one before. Tomo is curious as to why Mona never dated anyone, considering she could have any guy she wanted. Tomo concludes that Mona is still pure deep down and hasn't fallen for anyone yet. However, when she pushes further, Medaka's image flashes into Mona's mind. Even she cannot understand why she thinks of him. Her expression makes Tomo even more curious, wondering if there is really someone Mona likes. Mona denies it, but just as she is about to explain, Medaka suddenly shows up. Awkwardly, Mona greets him. He's there to pick up food for his friends who live nearby because he lost in a game. But when Tomo realizes Mona knows him, she immediately grabs his arm and invites him to sit with them. Introducing herself as Mona's childhood friend, she pulls Medaka close, her chest pressing against his arm. Mona shifts uncomfortably, while Medaka struggles to stay composed. Mona is clearly pissed off, while Medaka just wants Tomo to let him go. Mona agrees, which makes Tomo even more suspicious. She quickly pieces things together and concludes that Medaka must be the guy Mona thought of earlier. Leaning in, Tomo whispers to Mona, asking if Medaka is her boyfriend or someone she likes. Mona instantly shakes her head in denial, but Tomo isn't convinced. Determined to get to the truth, she keeps teasing Medaka, going as far as asking him to zip up her sweater for her. Medaka hesitantly does as told, his hands trembling with nervousness. As he zips it up, the zipper catches against Tomo's chest, causing it to bounce slightly. When he tries to force it up, Tomo lets out a soft moan, startling Medaka even more. Unable to take any more of it, Mona suddenly stands up and tells Tomo that's enough. Medaka, noticing Mona's strange reaction, looks at her in confusion. Flustered, Mona quickly covers up her emotions by pointing out that his food must be ready, urging him to leave. Medaka agrees, leaving the two, and the moment he disappears, Tomo bursts out laughing. Before Mona and Tomo go their separate ways, Tomo suddenly asks Mona if she likes Medaka. The question catches Mona off guard, and she quickly denies it. However, her reaction is too obvious, and Tomo, knowing her too well, sees right through her lie. Despite Mona's continued refusal, Tomo just smirks and brushes it off, deciding not to push any further. She bids Mona goodbye and walks away, leaving Mona standing there. She can't understand why Tomo would even think of that. In class, the students are busy with their own stuff when the instructor enters and introduces a new student. To Mona's shock, Tomo walks in and introduces herself with a smile. Mona is stunned, completely unprepared for this. Medaka also looks surprised to see her. After her introduction, Tomo turns to them with a smirk and greets them casually, as if she had planned this all along. Tomo is quickly surrounded by curious classmates asking about her background, while Mona sits in the corner, showing no reaction. When Tomo mentions that she and Mona are friends, Mona agrees but can't shake the uneasy feeling. She still doesn't understand why Tomo transferred to her school and her class and is even sitting right in front of her. Tsubame is excited to meet Mona's childhood friend, happily considering her a friend as well. Everyone is welcoming, but Mona remains suspicious. She asks Tomo why she didn't mention transferring, but Tomo just smirks, saying she wants to surprise her. Mona has a bad feeling about this, worried Tomo might do something weird and expose her. Yuzuru and Shu also introduce themselves, urging Medaka to do the same, but they are surprised when Tomo says she already met him yesterday. She casually tells the story, making Shu jealous that Medaka got to meet her first. Meanwhile, Yuzuru converses with Tomo about her friendship with Mona and to show how close she is to Mona. Tomo suddenly stands behind her and grabs her chest, gently massaging it with a teasing grin. The guys in the class freeze, eyes wide in shock, unable to believe what just happened. Even Mona is too stunned to react at first. Tomo smirks, casually commenting that they've gotten bigger since she last checked. That's the last straw. Mona snaps, slaps Tomo across the face without hesitation, and drags her out of the classroom, only silence left behind. Outside the classroom, Mona scolds Tomo, frustrated by her reckless behavior. Tomo, however, just shrugs it off, saying it's nothing new. She used to do the same thing back then. Mona, now too embarrassed to return to class, glares at her. but Tomo casually adds that she just showed off Mona's chest to Medaka. Flustered, Mona finally blurts out the real reason she's so hung up on Medaka. He's the only guy she hasn't been able to charm. That alone frustrates her beyond reason. But Tomo is still not convinced with her reasons. To her, it's obvious. Mona has a crush on Medaka. Mona groans in frustration. No matter how much she explains, Tomo refuses to believe her. Seeing Mona's reaction, Tomo stops for a moment before apologizing for jumping to conclusions. But as she thinks about it, she points out that Medaka doesn't even have the qualities Mona usually looks for in a guy, so it's impossible for her to fall for him. After all, he's so unfriendly. Yet, instead of agreeing, Mona immediately defends him, listing all the thoughtful and kind things Medaka has done for her. That's when Tomo gives her a knowing look. Given how she reacted and defended Medaka, it's obvious now. Mona really likes Medaka. She just hasn't realized it yet. Mona keeps denying it, but Tomo only grins, determined to help her best friend figure out her feelings. Tomo suddenly jumps in excitement, giggling as if she just uncovered the greatest secret. She's beyond happy for Mona's first love. Though Mona remains unsure, Tomo's words linger in her mind. Before she can respond, Tomo playfully declares that while giggling back to class. Left alone, Mona replays Tomo's words, unsure if they're true. The thought makes her blush and her heart race. The two of them look at each other, and at the last moment, Mona cannot do it. She pushes Medaka away and proceeds to tell the vendor they are not really a couple. Medaka is left standing there while Mona gets their snacks. Arriving back where their friends are gathered, they distribute the snacks to each one. Minami notices how sneaky Mona is when taking her time with Medaka while everyone else is busy taking pictures. Nonetheless, she reassures Asahi that there's still a lot of time to make her move. They will be at the theme park for the whole day after all. True enough, Asahi takes every chance she gets, always asking Medaka to stay right beside her, whether it's in the haunted house, on the rides, or just while they're having snacks. This leaves Mona in despair. In the powder room, Tomo notices the drop in Mona's energy. She points out how Asahi always seems to be the first one to make a move, and it's clearly taking a toll on Mona, so she needs to step up her game. Although Mona tries to deny this, insisting she's not bothered by Asahi, Tomo knows better. She's well aware that they are competing for Medaka's attention, but Mona stubbornly insists they are not. This makes Tomo smile, and she recalls when they were still younger. While her friends used to talk about their crushes, Mona would sit quietly in the corner, distracting herself. Yet her face often seemed annoyed. When asked about her interest in boys, she would always answer politely, claiming she didn't like anyone yet. On their way home back then, Tomo had told her she could see through her lies. It was obvious that Mona didn't like romance talk, but Mona admitted she just went along with it to avoid being disliked by the others. Returning to their conversation, Tomo tells Mona that she's never satisfied. Even though everyone already loves her, she still seems to want more. Her greed knows no limits. Mona wonders why Tomo is suddenly dissing her. But what Tomo really wants to say is that Mona keeps trying to be what everyone else wants her to be. She hides her true self as if people won't love her for who she really is. The truth is, Tomo is happy to see how Mona acts around Medaka. It's like she's finally letting her mask slip. Mona is moved by this. Tomo encourages her to give Medaka a chance. Even if it doesn't go as planned, she will never look back someday and wonder what could have been. Then Tomo turns to leave, but before walking away completely, she looks back at Mona and reassures her that she can do it. The theme park is slowly getting more crowded as the day goes on. Minami suggests they go for ice cream, and the group agrees. Because of her deep thoughts, Mona is slowly being left behind by the group. In her mind, she cannot stop thinking about Tomo's words. At first, she tells herself Tomo is just messing with her. But then she realizes Tomo is genuinely looking out for her. Being cute in the eyes of others has become Mona's identity, her comfort zone. Letting that go feels impossible. The fact that Tomo noticed her mask slip makes her wonder what she did to reveal that side of herself. Just the thought that Medaka might have seen it as well makes her stomach tighten. The possibility that Medaka could have witnessed her vulnerable side overwhelms her. Unable to hold herself together, she falls to her knees. She wonders what Medaka must think of her. Still, she brushes off the thought, convincing herself that Tomo is just getting the wrong idea. However, when Mona finally stands up to continue walking, she notices her friends are nowhere to be found. There are no familiar faces in the crowd, leaving her completely alone in the bustling theme park. Mona looks around, wondering where her friends could be. Just when she opens her phone to call Tomo, a bustling crowd suddenly races in her direction, causing her to lose balance and let go of her phone, cracking it before completely jumping into a fountain filled with water. Her eyes widened, and that was her only means of communication with her friends. When she picks up her phone, it's completely dead. Hopeless, she sits down, hoping her friends will find her somehow. The theme park grows busier as crowds continue to flow through the walkways. While Mona waits for her friends, two guys approach her. Their tone and body language suggest bad intentions, which unsettles her. Meanwhile, Tomo has been trying to reach Mona for some time, growing increasingly worried as her calls go unanswered and her messages remain unread. The rest of their friends also attempt to contact her, but none of them succeed. Deciding they can't waste any more time, they split up to search for her before the growing crowd makes things harder. Shu chooses to stay behind and wait as he's too busy with his ice cream to even bother. Tsubomi and Yuzuru decide to team up and search together. Asahi wants to go with Medaka, but to her dismay, he refuses, noticing how distracted she is with her ice cream and knowing she won't be able to keep up with him if he runs. With that, Tomo tells Asahi and Minami to stay behind and finish eating instead. Asahi gets frustrated at this and even scolds Minami for getting double scoops. Meanwhile, the two guys bothering Mona become increasingly pushy. They invite her to explore the park with them. And though Mona declines politely, they continue insisting. One of them grabs her wrist and forces her to stand, his grip tightening as his hand moves to her shoulder. Annoyance rises within Mona, first because of Asahi, then her broken phone, and now these strangers refusing to leave her alone. Before panic can fully set in, a voice suddenly calls to them from the back. To her relief, it's Medaka. The two guys turn to face him, and Mona feels immediate comfort at the sight. Medaka's expression is serious and firm as he tells them to let go of her. The two guys follow, and Mona instantly embraces Medaka. When the guys demand to know who he is, Mona quickly claims that Medaka is her boyfriend. Although skeptical at first, the two men eventually back down, intimidated by Medaka's cold and sharp expression. Once they leave, Mona finally exhales, the tension leaving her body. Only then does she realize her hands are gripping tightly onto Medaka's arm, her body pressed close to his. Embarrassed, she steps back and apologizes, her face burning with heat. Medaka asks if she's alright, and her flushed face deepens. She tries to convince herself that her reaction is nothing more than the lingering nerves from the earlier situation. After regaining her composure, Mona asks where the others are. Medaka explains that their friends had split up to search for her, but he can still reach them by phone. Mona informs him that her phone had fallen into the fountain earlier, which is why she couldn't respond. Medaka finds the situation absurd, but when he takes out his phone to make a call, a sudden rush of people brushes past him. His phone slips from his grasp, bounces off, and falls directly into the same fountain where Mona's phone had been lost. Now stranded without a way to contact their friends, Mona feels her anxiety building again. The thought of being alone with Medaka only makes her more flustered. Medaka suggests they walk around in hopes of running into their group. Mona agrees, and they continue moving through the dense crowd. As they walk side by side, their hands occasionally brush against each other. This accidental touch unsettles Mona further, her heart racing for reasons she doesn't understand. Her mind drifts back to finding her friends, yet she can't shake her growing restlessness. Lost in thought, she doesn't notice Medaka stop walking until she accidentally bumps into his back. Looking past him, she sees the enormous Ferris wheel towering ahead. Medaka stares at it with an expression of awe, clearly fascinated. Though he tries to deny his interest, it's obvious he wants to ride it. Mona hesitates, knowing that saying yes would mean being stuck in a small, enclosed space with him. Yet thinking about how Medaka had gone out of his way to find her, even losing his phone in the process, she figures this is the least she can do in return. With this, Mona invites him to ride with her, and although Medaka is hesitant, Mona assures her there is a possibility he will be able to spot their friends from above, so he eventually agrees. The ride begins, and Mona is already a bundle of nerves. The Ferris wheel isn't even that thrilling. The fact that she's alone with Medaka has her stomach in knots. Meanwhile, Medaka remains calm, gazing out the window with fascination as the ride steadily rises. Mona wonders how he manages to stay so composed when her own thoughts are spinning wildly. When she catches her reflection in the window, Mona freezes. Her face is tense, her expression awkward and strained. Nothing like the cute, perfect image she's always maintained. The sight startles her. She hadn't realized she was reacting so obviously, and panic sets in. Tomo's words echo in her mind, the reminder of her mask slipping. Mona realizes this isn't the first time it's happened. Memories flash back to moments when her composure wavered around Medaka. Her irritation, her flustered reactions, her embarrassment. She's always prided herself on being the adorable, flawless one, yet somehow, she keeps losing that image in front of him. Tomo's voice lingers again, the suggestion that Medaka could be her first love. Mona refuses to accept it, shaking her head in denial. Before she can dwell further, Medaka speaks, pointing at something below. He mentions a show happening nearby, one that catches Mona's interest. Eager to see it too, she stands up without thinking. The sudden motion causes her to lose her balance, and before she can steady herself, her lips accidentally brush against Medaka's cheek. The moment stuns them both. Mona's face burns as she stares back at her reflection, unable to recognize herself. Flustered and overwhelmed, she immediately covers her face with her hands, telling Medaka not to look at her. Her heart races as her mind spirals. She doesn't understand why she's making such a face. It's as if she's in love or something. That thought unsettles her. Desperate to justify her reaction, she tells Medaka how she feels, how she hates being seen like this, vulnerable and imperfect. She's supposed to be flawless, always adorable, always composed. No one should see her otherwise. Medaka's response is quiet yet firm. He admits that Mona has been acting differently lately. She's being weird. One moment pouting in frustration, the next moment smiling again. He says it's hard to understand her because she keeps switching between emotions. Mona's heart sinks. Tomo was right. Medaka had noticed everything. The idea leaves her horrified. She tries to shrink away, bowing her head so her hair hides her face. But Medaka steps closer. He tells her that he doesn't mean it in a bad way. In fact, seeing her react differently makes his heart race. He confesses that her genuine emotions make her look cuter to him, and that is his problem. Mona's heart skips a beat. She's been called cute and charming countless times before, yet somehow hearing it from Medaka feels different. Confused and overwhelmed, she wonders if this is what being in love feels like. And despite her resistance to the thought, she realizes she can't deny it anymore. Medaka suddenly notices Yuzuru and the others through the window. When he turns back to Mona, his face bright with a smile, telling her he found them. Overcome with emotion, she drops to her knees. Medaka asks her what's wrong, but she can't bring herself to answer. In that quiet moment, as her heart pounds painfully in her chest, Mona finally admits to herself what she's been fighting all along. At 17 years old, for the first time in her life, she's fallen in love. As they make their way back to the group, Mona follows behind Medaka. Her usual confidence is gone, replaced by an unfamiliar shyness. She keeps her head down, her steps hesitant. Medaka instantly notices this and picks up on the change. Something is different with Mona, but it only makes her look cuter to him. When they finally reunite with their friends, Tsubame rushes forward, relief evident as she embraces Mona. She also apologizes for getting lost, while the others express how worried they were. Shu mentions that the group had lost contact with Medaka as well, so they explain that both of their phones were broken. Tomo, never one to miss an opportunity to tease, jokes about how much longer they would have waited before announcing a lost child alert. Mona isn't sure how to react, and Tomo's presence only makes her more self-conscious. Before she can compose herself, Asahi calls out with a suspicious remark about whether anything happened between her and Medaka while they were alone. The question jolts her, and her immediate denial, too quick, too defensive, only makes her face burn a deep shade of red. Medaka notices how down and low on energy she has been. It's obvious something's really off, and it only deepens his curiosity. As the conversation shifts, Yuzuru suggests grabbing food, and the group quickly agrees. To their surprise, Mona hesitates. Claiming she's exhausted, she asks to go home early. Her uncharacteristic quietness and avoidance concern them, but rather than sending her off alone, they decide to call it a day. As Tomo thanks everyone for attending her welcome party, the group makes casual plans for their next hangout. Amidst the chatter, Mona remains withdrawn, lost in thoughts she can't untangle. On the train ride home, the crowd separates Mona and Tomo from the others. Mona, uncharacteristically quiet, apologizes for cutting the day short. Tomo studies her carefully, noting the subtle shifts in her demeanor. Something's off, something deeper than simple exhaustion. When Tomo casually suggests it has to do with Medaka, Mona tenses, her eyes widening at Tomo's words, but her reaction only confirms everything. With Tomo's persistent prodding, Mona finally gives in. She admits that Medaka had noticed her mask slip, and rather than ignoring it, he found it endearing. The memory alone sends heat rushing to her cheeks. Tomo wants to dig deeper, so she pushes Mona to say more, but Mona's afraid Tomo will judge her for what she's about to say. With this, Tomo promises not to laugh. Mona speaks hesitantly, her voice barely audible as she acknowledges what she's been struggling to accept all day. She has fallen for Medaka. The realization feels both liberating and terrifying. Tomo, unsurprised, simply smiles. She's known it all along. When Mona scolds her for laughing, Tomo only teases her more, delighted that her best friend has finally experienced her first love. The teasing continues, and the echoes of their voices can be heard inside until the train reaches its stop. Asahi is about to step onto the pedestrian lane where she hears someone calling her name. Turning around, she finds Mona breathless and visibly exhausted. Asahi is surprised to see her there, knowing Mona lives in the opposite direction of town. Noticing how unwell Mona looks, Asahi tells her to go home and rest. But Mona stops her from walking away. There's something she needs to say. Mona recalls the countless times she denied her feelings for Medaka to Asahi and assumes that what she's about to say will only anger her. But she can't keep it in anymore. With a deep breath, she confesses her feelings. She has fallen for Medaka. Asahi doesn't react immediately. Her expression is unreadable. Mona, feeling guilty, quickly apologizes for keeping it from her. She insists that she truly meant what she said before, but only now has she come to realize her feelings. Instead of anger, Asahi merely sighs as if she had already expected this. She always knew this day would come, though part of her had hoped Mona would never realize it. But now that she has, Asahi knows she has to fight even harder to win Medaka's heart. She admits she regrets giving them so much time alone together. It must have been then that Mona realized her feelings. But she doesn't hold it against her. Love isn't a first-come, first-served competition, nor is it something that follows logic. For Asahi, it was love at first sight. For Mona, it happened just earlier this day, so there's no need for apologies. Mona can't help but admire how cool and composed Asahi is in handling things. This makes Mona even more aware of the kind of rival she's up against. Before she can say anything more, Asahi turns away as the traffic light signals go. Reaching the other side, Mona calls out to her, declaring she won't lose this time. Asahi, with a small smile, acknowledges her words before walking away completely. leaving Mona standing there, her head throbbing. The next morning, Mona wakes up feeling worse. A thermometer rests in her mouth and a cooling pad is placed on her forehead. Yesterday, she fell in love. Today, she has a fever. This is so unlike her. Checking the thermometer, she confirms her high temperature. She has never been sick like this before, and she has no idea what to do. Rolling onto her side, she sighs, lost in thought. She has always been the one who was admired, the one others chased after. Now that she's the one in love, she doesn't know how to handle it. At school, lunchtime is in full swing when Tomo, sipping her juice, hears her phone ring. Mona is calling. Answering the video call, Tomo sees Mona in pajamas, looking pitiful but cute as ever. They greet each other, and Tomo checks in on how she's feeling. Since her phone is broken, Mona is using her little brother's tablet to call. Mona complains about the misery of having a fever, even grumbling about how lonely it feels. Tomo, seeing through her, smirks and teases her. It's not the fever making her miserable, it's the fact that she can't see Medaka. Mona vehemently denies this, her voice slightly shouting, but Tomo isn't convinced. Just as Tomo finishes her drink and turns to toss the trash, she catches sight of Medaka walking out the door. Her eyes light up with mischief. A bold idea forms in her mind, and she knows exactly what to do next. Without hesitation, Tomo tells Mona to hold on for a second before making her way toward Medaka. Mona barely has time to react before she realizes what's happening. Tomo is about to hand Medaka the phone. Panic surges through her. She's in her pajamas, looking far from her best, and there's no way she can let him see her like this. Frantically, she tries to fix her hair, hoping to make herself at least somewhat presentable. Meanwhile, Tomo reaches Medaka, grabs his hand without warning, and pulls him into a quieter area of the campus. When they finally stop, Tomo turns the phone toward him, revealing Mona on the screen. The moment Medaka sees her, he stiffens. Mona, in her pajamas, her hair slightly messy. It feels almost like he's seeing something he shouldn't. His face heats up, and he quickly composes himself to remain steady. On the other end of the call, Mona is still in full panic mode, furiously combing her hair, desperate to look better. She doesn't want him to see her looking anything less than her usual polished self. Tomo, watching this unfold, holds back a smirk. She casually hands the phone to Medaka. Then, with a quick excuse about needing to use the restroom, she walks off, leaving them alone to talk until she returns. The moment their eyes meet through the screen, Mona instantly panics and apologizes for bothering Medaka. She fumbles to press the end button, but before she can, Medaka stops her, assuring her that she's not a bother at all. His sincerity catches her off guard. Medaka checks in on her, mentioning that she seemed to be acting weird yesterday. The comment startles Mona, and her reaction makes it obvious, so Medaka quickly backtracks, clarifying that by weird, he actually meant cute. Embarrassed, Mona huffs and retaliates, pointing out that Medaka has his fair share of weird moments too. Their conversation naturally drifts into random topics, and before she knows it, Mona is rolling around on her bed, unable to contain her excitement. The mix of emotions, embarrassment, joy, and an unfamiliar warmth has her completely restless. She loves talking to him. It feels easy, natural. She wonders if they will talk even more once they start dating. Just as she begins daydreaming about it, reality slaps her in the form of a sudden knock on her bedroom door. Panic takes over. Not wanting her mom to know she's talking to a boy, she quickly shoves the tablet between her legs, hoping to hide it from view. Her mom, suspicious of the muffled sounds coming from her room, decides to check in on her. On the other end of the call, Medaka is frozen in place, his eyes wide with realization. He tries to warn her, his voice strained as he calls her name. But Mona, too focused on her mother, doesn't notice. By the time she realizes what he's trying to say, it's too late. Horror washes over her as she processes the situation. In a blind panic, she shrieks and flings the tablet across the room. Meanwhile, Medaka, now thoroughly shaken, finds himself at the school faucet, splashing cold water over his head. He mutters reminders to himself he's in Monkin training, he must remain pure, he must not stray. Yuzuru and Shu, passing by, stare at him in bewilderment, completely unaware of what just happened. The next day, Mona is back to her usual self, fever-free and full of energy. As she gets dressed for school, she feels a newfound determination bubbling inside her. She's going to get closer to Medaka, no matter what. Shopping, movies, holding hands. Her mind races with the possibilities of what they could do together. The thought alone makes her heart race. As she rushes out the door and runs to school, everything feels different. Her body feels lighter, there's a spring in her step, and the world just feels brand new. She greets everyone on her way to class. Tsubame, noticing her return, also greets her as they walk together to class. When they pass by Minami and Asahi near the lockers, Mona greets them with her usual confidence, but this time she's more cheerful. Inside her mind, she tells Asahi she will not lose to her. Even Minami, usually oblivious, notices the sudden, high-spirited Mona. Arriving at class, Mona greets everyone, and they immediately check in on her after her sudden absence. She reassures them she's fine, then steels herself to greet Medaka. Taking a deep breath, she turns toward him, determined to act naturally. But then, Medaka cuts her greeting by telling him the same thing. Her mind goes blank. He looks even dreamier than usual, and before she can stop herself, she panics. Her grip on her stationery falters, and her eraser slips from her desk, tumbling to the floor. She quickly bends down to retrieve it, only to find her hand brushing against Medaka's, who had reached for it at the same time. The brief contact is enough to send her into a full meltdown. Medaka, sensing her distress, quickly apologizes. But when he looks at her again, she's as red as a tomato. Without another word, Mana shoots up from her seat, makes a flimsy excuse about feeling sick, and bolts out of the classroom. As the class watches in confusion, Tomo bursts into uncontrollable laughter, thoroughly enjoying the scene. On her way out of the school gates, she tells herself she's going to make Medaka her boyfriend, no matter what.